Kinango constituency has 164 public primary schools. Out of these, 72 are in a deplorable state. This is despite the constituency receiving the lion's share of the Constituency Development Fund CDF cash in 2013 with an allocation of 171 million shillings. According to records seen by NTV, between 2013 and 2017, the constituency received over 800 million shillings. Area Member of Parliament Benjamin Dalu Tayari has acknowledged that the infrastructure of public schools in his constituency is not desirable, but he says he's not to blame for this state of affairs.
I feel I would have done a lot with the 170 million to improve the infrastructure of the schools. So there have been so many question marks on how the CDF funds is being utilized, and I just want to remove, in my leadership, I want to remove that fear that there is misuse of CDF funds. Mimi nilipoingia nilipata shule nyingi zimejengwa kupitia CDF, lakini hata ukiangalia ile hali zile viko si hali ya kusema kwamba hii pesa serikali imetumika vizuri. Na hapo ndio nimebadilisha msingi, nimeweka msingi mpya, tuko na kamati mpya ambayo inasimamia vizuri.
The last time for CDF to construct a building here was in 2012, where they put up that structure there and it was not complete and they went. Wakati mwingine CDF zinajenga mahali hata ambapo kuna majengo ya kutosha, ndio wanapeleka majengo hapo. Hasa hizi shule za huku ndani ni kama zimebaguliwa sana.
Every village now, the family members and the village elders, they all want to set up primary schools, saying that the children have to walk to far distances to get education. And this is the one which is creating problems. So I've really stopped this habit of starting primary schools so that we can really embark on proper structures for our people. We are supposed to receive equalization funds from Treasury, but this one also has delayed. We've not received that money, whereas I had said if we receive the 200 million, I was going to allocate around 100 million only on education. This one was really going to help us a lot. If you combine the 100 million plus the 40 million from CDF, would be having 140 million per year. This one would really give us a big achievement in regard to the education. What we get from the ministry is peanuts, from the infrastructure fund. You can imagine a constituency like Kinango, which is in dire need, was allocated only 500,000 Kenya shillings to one primary school. Since I came in, I've in total built around 45 classrooms. And this financial year, I'm trying to build around 60.
Education function remains under the national government. The only aspect of this have been devolved a pre-primary education. Kwale County government says it has constructed 370 ECD centers, but it has also acknowledged that the situation in some schools is bad.
Fine, we have accepted that. Yeah, you know, Rome was not built in a day. We've not actually addressed all the challenges, especially infrastructure. But I want to tell you one thing. As a county government, we started from zero. We have got more than 800 ECD centers in Kwale County, which need to be furnished and be provided with the infrastructural support. This financial year, we are going to do 70 ECD centers.
The plight of these peoples once again highlights the infrastructural crisis that has continued to rock many Kenyan state schools following the introduction of free primary education 16 years ago. Watermelon, watermelon, watermelon. But what worries the teachers most is the fact that after years of suffering, there seems to be no end in sight, even with the rollout of the competency-based curriculum. Under the new education system, pupils are expected to complete 2 years of preschool, 6 years in primary school, and 3 years in junior secondary school. Learners are also expected to complete another 3 years in senior secondary school and another 3 years in university. According to the CEO of Kenya Institute of Curriculum Development, Dr. Julius Wan, competency-based curriculum is good and focuses on the learner. as opposed to the 8-4-4 system, which is exam-oriented and favors highly cognitive learners.
When even Form 4, when results come out, like now 2018, 441,000 had a D plus and below. 93 had a C plus and above. About 122 had C plain and C minus. So they will go to colleges and technical institutes. Nobody bothers about the 441,000, which is more than actually almost 3/4. We don't celebrate them. We have declared them failures. What happens to them? Then you go back. What is the purpose of education for a country? It's to socialize people to be productive members of that society. Now, if that socialization process already has excluded and condemned the 3/4 of the people who are coming out, what are we telling the country?
Unlike the current system of education, one says CBC will be more practical and will churn out graduates who will be self-reliant in the job market in the technical fields.
CBC is good for this country, and CBC should have been rolled out like yesteryears. Actually, in the US, in some of the states, CBC started in 1985. So you can calculate and see. Some of the things that are introduced in the CBC, like entrepreneurial skills, business skills, are generic skills that somebody requires, so that even if you go outside there and you get money from the youth fund, you know what to do with it.
Meanwhile, Kenya National Union of Teachers have accused the Ministry of Education of using shortcuts to rush through the competency-based curriculum CBC, which will replace the 8-4-4 system.
The right things were not done. And this is a process that has been hijacked by foreigners. It is not being driven by Kenyans. This is a cut and paste curriculum which gives room for, it's a business model curriculum.
Curriculum is never a copy-paste thing. At least we don't have a foreigner driving this process. We have very good Kenyans dealing with this process. Is somebody saying that we have deliberately, with the support of the government, decided to destroy the future of this country? I mean, just think about it, because we are not going anywhere.
Any curriculum to qualify, to be rolled out, must go through a systematic scientific process, beginning with the evaluation of the existing curriculum and sharing of the findings with the public, the needs assessment, development of policy framework that involves many steps, including a task force in place made up of eminent experts in curriculum development, But in this situation, experts in curriculum development have been locked out. They're not part of the process. So we wonder which experts are midwifing this process, and bills getting to Parliament so that it receives the necessary statutory instruments and support from Parliament. So far, that was not done, and even Parliament is yet to debate this.
In March this year, NAT commissioned a study which revealed that there is a major deficit across the 47 counties of teachers with the necessary skills to implement the CBC in primary schools. The report revealed most schools in Kenya were not fully prepared to handle the 2633 curriculum.
Right now, we don't have a teacher training curriculum model for the teacher training colleges. That should have been item number 1 in 2015-2016, that by 2019, at the beginning of the rollout, teacher training colleges and universities should have been graduating competency-based curriculum-trained teachers. This has not been done.
Some of the issues cited by the union as hampering the success of the new curriculum include rushed implementation, shortage of teachers, poorly developed infrastructure, lack of support in monitoring books, and failure to involve the participation of private schools in the training.
The trainings that teachers have been given are not trainings at all, because those who are training teachers are not informed. They lack capacity to interpret designs of CBC. So how can a blind man lead another blind man? Truly, our teachers are incapable and unable to teach CBC. They are incapable and unable. And therefore, there is no CBC in the classrooms in Kenya.
We have done all that was required. We trained teachers in April. We are going to train another set in August, and we shall train another set in December.
Training and orientation and professional development is always a continuous process. You'll never do it once and say it is done. The idea of continuous professional development will always be there. So the question of saying they were not trained enough, without being rude, I would ask, in what? Because we're just giving them an orientation. But I think this is a narrative that has been pushed by a specific group to achieve a specific agenda.
According to experts, the government needed time to prepare for the new curriculum.
There are many salient issues which were never considered. So even using analogies such as the train has left the station. It left the station, it never took the passengers. It left the station, it didn't have fuel. It left the station, but the railway has not been constructed to the end. We know that inequality is a serious challenge in our education in Kenya. Children in rural areas, children living with a disability, gender issues, geographical challenges. These are realities, language of instruction. These are shades of inequalities that CBC in itself cannot deliver.
A recent survey by the Early Grade Mathematics Assessment Endline Study revealed that about 40% of schools were found to have no basic structures, such as desks and chairs. Furthermore, the National Assessment System Monitoring Study conducted for Standard 3 indicated that at least 31% of schools do not have laptops.
The infrastructure of our schools cannot absorb CBC. In fact, CBC, many regions of this country will be marginalized, and public schools will remain permanently marginalized. The only thing that they can wait for is to die. And it will give leverage to private schools in terms of infrastructure. To deliver CBC effectively, like we see in Finland and Singapore, at that level, you would require about 3 teachers in every classroom, in every learning lesson, because you must assess every learner at the end of the lesson. And so the class sizes do not exceed 25. They do not exceed 25 with 3 teachers. So you can imagine we have to subdivide all our classrooms in our public schools, create more space, and get more teachers. We've got to invest very heavily in infrastructure so that the table designs are different from the desk design. Parliament needed to debate this and prepare the country in terms of appropriating money to prepare the human resource and appropriating money to prepare the infrastructure. That was not done. And so you could not move beyond this stage 3 to designs, to syllabus, to piloting and rollout. That should not be done if you can't do stage number 3. Was this done in this country? Definitely it was not. So how was the curriculum designed informed?
Those challenges will always be there. But what matters is how are they being addressed? If you talk of like a shortage of teachers, which has always been there, how is it being addressed? It is not something that is coming up because CBC has come into existence. It's just now the teachers are expected to be more engaged with the learner. Incidentally, the way we have designed the teaching and learning process is such that even if you are sitting on a floor, you will learn. We don't want, infrastructure is very critical in a school. But do you want that to hold us from rolling out a 21st century curriculum? What you do, and that's exactly what we have done, when we are doing orientation to the teachers, we tell them to use local material.
I've been to many parts of the country and I'm satisfied without prejudice. Whether you are sitting in a dilapidated structure, but the teacher is there and the equipment for teaching is there, the CBC is taking root. The infrastructure that was another problem, we are addressing it. This year we have another 300 million to apply to our primary schools. And we are going to apply it where it is needed most.
Huu mradi ni mbaya zaidi kuliko ile ya laptop ambayo iligharimu 70 billion na zile vifaa zimepelekwa kwa shule ni 1 million tablets, hata sio laptops, na nusu zimekufa, walimu hawajui kuitumia. Na hata hii CBC inafaa kuwa digitally driven. Report ile tumepewa kwa ministry na wale experts. Hii ni report za serikali ni kwamba laptop iko katika 5% success. 5% success. Kama imefaili kwa 5%, je, na hii CBC is supposed to ride on digital literacy program. Sasa hiyo ni kumaanisha nini?
Preliminary results of an assessment of grade 3 pupils provides a reality check for the drivers of the competency-based curriculum that is being rolled out in schools. The findings indicate that half of the pupils do not attain the 50% benchmark in English, Kiswahili and mathematics, and that a majority have weak comprehension skills. The survey raises serious questions as to whether the country is really prepared for the new curriculum.
It failed in South Africa because teachers were unable to deliver teaching of CBC. And they were honest enough to boycott and stop teaching CBC. But we've seen Kenyan teachers trying to raise their concerns. The only thing they are met with is interdictions and forced teaching.
I think the biggest challenge that we have now is that attitude change because of some of these dissenting voices that try to give certain impressions. Like now when somebody says, this has failed in South Africa, failed in UK, failed in the USA. Of course it has not failed in those countries. But because they are saying it because they want people to get swayed. Rwanda rolled out CBC 2 years ago. They have had their challenges, but they're moving on because they know that is the right thing to do. South Sudan rolled out ahead of us. Uganda is rolling out in phases. Tanzania has rolled out. So, I don't know, maybe, I think I just don't understand. We carried ourselves, invited by NAT. They invited all the executives from across the country. We went to their boardroom. We spent the whole morning discussing issues of CBC. We made presentations. And what did they say? They said, this is perfect. You guys have found the right thing. We support you. We have many agencies in this country who are key stakeholders in education. Do you want to tell me that of all these key stakeholders, NAT is a better stakeholder than the others? I mean, let's just face reality. If they find that there's something we are supposed to do better, like now they were talking about teacher training, why did they go to kick teachers out of training sessions? What exactly was the issue?
Grade 4 will be rolled out in 2020, but the roadmap will be ready by September this year.
One thing we may not have done well is having a strong communication strategy that would have helped us carry Kenyans along, explain to them. And that is why we are coming up with a new strategy of communication.
To address the underlying issues, Education Cabinet Secretary Professor George Magoha has formed a task force to undertake critical analysis of the national rollout and advise on key implementation issues.
How would you form a task force that excludes unions? And look at the members of the task force. They have been very loud proponents of CBC who have been put on the task force. So what we expect is a rubber stamp process. We don't think that task force is any task force that will deliver any meaningful work. They will be told what to approve and what to do.
The state is yet to decide whether the 11 years of schooling or grade 9 under the new 2633 system will be part of primary or secondary education. Currently, primary school ends in the 10th year of school or class 8 under the 844 curriculum that was introduced in 1984 and is gradually being phased out.
We are now beginning to get sober. If you thought that implementing CBC in early years, pre-primary 1, pre-primary 2, grade 1, 2, and 3 was challenging as it is right now. Wait for another 3 years when we walk into grade 6, and now these children have to graduate to go into junior secondary school.
Right now, they're not sure where to domicile grade 7, 8, and 9. It is a difficult agenda. And that tells you that the curriculum framework model is poor.
The task force has up to June 2020 to determine at what point learners join secondary schools.
We are not opposed to any curriculum, but can we follow the correct steps? We cannot do it in a day. For Kenya to deliver CBC, the earliest it can successfully is 2025.
You see, there is nowhere where there are no challenges. As a Starehian Eagle, I was trained to have my cup half full and to get water to fill it. That is precisely what I'm doing. You people are doing a good job by asking pertinent questions, but you should also allow us to do the job that we are supposed to do.
What I want people to focus on is the child. Go and see the child. Is the child happy at that level? If the child is happy, that is what is important. Because at that level, learning is supposed to be exciting to the child.
As the debate of whether the country is adequately prepared to handle the new curriculum continues, the challenge will be on how the government will marshal resources, especially to schools in rural areas who are mostly disadvantaged in many ways.